It's been a year since COVID shut everything down, and in today's episode, I want to talk about how we're doing. Stay tuned.
You are listening to The Leadersmith, Darren Gertis.
Okay, so about a year ago today, as I record, or about this week as you listen to it, um, COVID shut everything down. And I remember precisely what happened. I was at a academic conference and I was so glad to be done with it. I was the president. I'm now the past president of the organization. And the conference went well and I was relaxing and I was watching this stuff about why is everybody buying up these masks? And I was trying to make heads or tails of that. And went back to I drove back home and was, trying to catch up on work for the week. And then we went on spring break and we never came back from spring break that semester. Everything went virtual. Everything was in shutdown and it was just a weird transitory time. Now, if you remember back before COVID, and that's kind of hard to do sometimes. If you remember before COVID, like I remember like at CSU, my colleague across the hall was preparing a first international business trip to Italy. And he was worried about, what's going on over there. But he was thinking, I think it'll be okay. And we were talking about that in January. On January 9th, the WHO announced this mysterious coronavirus related issue in Wuhan, January 9th. That's like when we're first getting wind of it. January 21st is when the CDC confirmed the first US case. In January 23rd, they went under quarantine. I remember talking with that same colleague across the hall and saying, yeah, I'm good on China. I mean, that they're taking those rigorous methods to quarantine so it doesn't spread. No, turns out. February 2nd, global air travel was restricted. February 3rd, the U.S. declared a public health emergency. March 11th, the WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic. By March 13th, Trump declared COVID a national emergency. So I'm recording this today. It is Friday, March 12th, and about this time, everything was changing for us, right? And 2020 has just been terrible. In fact, there's some calculations that COVID has taken the life of a person per minute since it broke out. I mean, just on average, one per minute has died. And that's just terrible. It's tragic. So, as horrible as this COVID has been, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, beyond the death, the depression rates are skyrocketing. They're going through the roof. We have to wear masks everywhere that we go. Lack of physical touch. I mean, it's just weird not seeing someone and not shaking hands or hugging or whatever. Social distancing, activities that we can't engage in. My kids' soccer, was like this annual thing at a certain season. All those things have evaporated, and we've had to shift gears. But I'm amazed by how many people I know that during the pandemic have been insanely productive. I know a guy that he, used to do ropes courses and corporate trainings and that kind of thing. And he had to shift gears, right? Like you can't go and physically do those things during the pandemic. So 2020 and 2021 have been pretty rough seasons for him. So he's converted to doing a lot of virtual trainings. Okay, it's not the same. He's learning how to do the same. In fact, he co-wrote or edited a book about how to shift gears. In fact, he wrote 5 books this past year, right? He became insanely productive. And he's not the only one. I'm detecting this very strange trend where either you get stuck and coronavirus takes you down, and now I don't mean just physically, like either you get stuck and you just don't function because you haven't shifted gears, or your business, you're just unable to shift gears, or you become really, really productive. I know that myself, I published more than ever. I have 2 forthcoming book chapters. I started my podcast. I'm now on episode 149 of my podcast. Begun working and with a colleague on some leadership and management consulting. I'm really productive this year. And as I thought about it, I'm thinking like, this is a very strange year to be as productive as I've been. What's going on? So I'm trying to understand it. And like I said, I'm not the only one. So what's going on? Okay, I don't have to commute to work, but that's only 25 minutes each way max, right? Even in bad traffic, let's say 25 minutes, less than an hour a day. So an hour a day would only give me 5 more hours each week. So what's going on? It's not that. Stupid meetings, unnecessary meetings have been reduced. Like nobody likes being in online meetings most of the time. And so they've reduced ones that were not actually necessary, but people were using just to justify their position. So stupid meetings are reduced. Some Zoom meetings, but only the essential ones still continue. But I think more than the lack of commute or the Zoom meetings being at a minimum, I think we refocused on what's important. I think big things, tragic things, sad things, focus our minds on the things that are important in ways that you could have done before, but you wouldn't really have felt like you had to if you were just in good times. It's really interesting because this has shifted the way that we think. Right? Like we want to be in nature instead of on our devices. Right? Our kids rejoice. You watch the news, and kids are told, "Guess what? Your school's reopening," and they're like, "Yay!" They're like, "Yay!" The same way that we were like, "Yay!" when there was a snow day and we didn't have to go to school. Right? So things have refocused and reordered. It's like a hard reset for our hierarchy of values. So it's been terrible. Bad things have happened. I've lost loved ones. You've probably lost loved ones. Um, so I don't wish anything like COVID on anybody ever again. But in spite of it all, a lot of people have been really productive and made lemonade out of lemons. And I'm trying to understand why. So I think if you've been successful, if you come out on the other side, or if you want to come out on the other side, you need to listen to this. You have to adjust. You have to convert. You have to do things differently. And, I know that some people can't do that. But I know that if others can do it in your field, you can do it. You can do it. And, yesterday I was talking in class. We were reading a passage from a book called Managing Transitions, and some of my students were presenting about this. And there's this really interesting concept. Managing Transitions talks about organizational change. It's an organizational change class. And the authors talk about like 3 phases of a transition. There's this ending phase, like leaving what was, before you go into a neutral zone phase, before you go to a new beginning. And often we think of change as I've made the decision, so I'm going to stop doing that and I'm going to start doing this. But you have to mentally end. You have to mentally leave what was before you can actually get to what should be or what will be down the line. And in between, you go through this thing called the neutral zone. The neutral zone is this really interesting place where everything is kind of in flux or in flow and you're not exactly sure where things are, but you can kind of build the future that you're going to. And that's where we are right now. We're going to be in a neutral zone for the next, I don't know how many months, as we start coming out of COVID and reshaping how much of 2020, 2021 COVID-like world do we want to keep that has been working, that we wouldn't have thought about before, and how much do we want to go back to a similar reality to where we were before. So we're in this neutral zone and we need to work that out and think through this. But this is a time where we can actually be creative and try to use this in our favor. Now, I want you to think through that because that's important. You can kind of create what's going to happen next for you. Now, you can't make it be non-COVID, but you can kind of create, like, are you going to be doing virtual things on top of doing regular things, like in-person things? Or are you just going to go all virtual? Or are you going to wait for all physical to come back? It's those kind of questions. Just remember that if other people have done it in your field, you can probably do it too. So I'm going to end with the quotation for contemplation today, which comes from Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh. He said to Pooh Bear, he said this, "Promise me you'll always remember. You're braver than you believe. You're stronger than you seem. And you're smarter than you think." Hey, look, I think you are too. You are braver than you believe and stronger than you seem and smarter than you think. You can do it. Hey, thanks for listening today. I really appreciate it. And I hope this helps you understand what we've just been through, where we're going, and how you can be the kind of leader that you would want to follow.